Hello and welcome to the ArtistWorks Rock and Guitar Roundtable, Rock and Blues. We're about to kick it off here. I'm Marcus Luscombe, the Director of Content and Production here at ArtistWorks, and today we have an amazing show lined up for you. I'm joined by two guitar legends, Paul Gilbert and Jared James Nichols. And so during the show, if you've tuned in before, just let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. If you've got any questions for these guys, just post it in there as well, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. But before we get started, just wanted to let you know we're doing a big giveaway. So in the description below, you can click to enter at that link, and we've got multiple prize packs, including a Paul Gilbert custom Ibanez PGM 50 guitar, Seymour Duncan JJN P90 silencer pickups, signed albums from both artists, string packs from DR, picks from Paul's, and 12-month memberships to learn guitar online with Paul and Jared at ArtistWorks. And so you can actually interact directly with them through video exchange there. And everyone that enters is going to get free sample lessons that come with tablature as well. So now that the housekeeping's out of the way, let's rock. And let me bring these guys on.
Hello.
Hey. Welcome.
What's going on?
Paul, Marcus.
Jared.
Good to see you both. Where are you guys tuning in from?
I'm tuning in from Nashville. So if my Wi-Fi is spotty, it's because I have bad Wi-Fi, but I'm in Nashville. I'm here with my puppy and my guitar, and I'm so excited to be here. Paul, where are you at?
I'm in Buffalo, New York. The very last show of the Mr. Big American tour is tomorrow. So I'm gearing up for that and enjoying my hotel mural in the background.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Paul,
well, we always like to kick these things off with some playing. So you guys want to get us started here?
Oh, my goodness. Well, of course, because of the internet, we can't really play together, but we could probably trade things off and put a little space between. So I'm going to play something and you can respond, but just make sure you leave a moment between. So I'm going to play.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
You sound incredible, and every time that I hear you play, it makes me want to play. I love it.
Well, vice versa. I've got a question. There's a Stevie Wonder album that is called Songs in the Key of Life. And that's inspired me to think about a similar title, which is Songs in the Key of F.
Ooh.
And I thought,
I like that.
Yeah, I thought, well, what are, because on guitar, you usually play an E or A, but I do know some songs in the key of F, and then I'm gonna play a little bit of some of the songs I know that are in the key of F, and then I'm gonna quiz you and see if you know any songs in F. And
okay, now I gotta think about this. Yeah. Go ahead.
We might double up too. We might know the same one. But the first one is Albert King. COD, which is like
great song.
And on top of that, all kinds of good things are happening. But it's in F, and of course, when it comes to the solo, I got to figure out like how to play in F, but not on the F fret.
Totally.
Can you do that? Do you know how to play an F, not on the F fret?
Yeah, I mean, I have to think about it in a certain way, right? So like, I'll trick my brain and say you're an E, but one up, right? So everything will kind of go, But I got to be careful because I'm gonna want to go. And we both know I'm going to have to go there. So I'll have to really kind of just like recalibrate one fret. It's weird though. You got to catch yourself. It's like you have to be really, really in tune with the fretboard at that point because I feel like it's an easy slip up. Man, you have me. Okay, I know a song in F.
Okay,
I got one.
Lay one on me.
This is classic.
I came up. That was an F.
Yeah, it's an F, and that's such a guitar. Yeah, that's that. All right, what do you got? What else is in F?
Okay, I got the song by the Who, and it's probably written on keyboards, and we do a cover of it. Although we play it in E to make it guitar friendly, but it's actually in F, which is Baba O'Reilly. That's like one of the best picking exercises. That I'm glad that's in the set every night because that's like my muscle building time.
Well, I gotta say, after being on tour with you for about 20 shows, that was one of my highlights of your guys' set. Was every night when you guys busted into Baba O'Reilly.
Yeah, that's such a good tune.
So good, and you guys play it so well. That was incredible. And you're playing all those keyboard parts on the guitar, which is so cool.
Well, it's fun to translate.
I'm thinking of another song. Oh my gosh. Oh geez, this might be one of the hardest keys to think of songs in.
Well, it's better than E flat. I only got one E flat.
What do you got?
Your song by Elton John.
Oh, okay.
It's a little bit funny. This feeling inside. It's really C minor.
Close to the C minor, yeah.
Don't have much money, but if I did C minor, I'd buy a big house where people could live. But hope you don't mind. I hope you don't mind that I put that in words. that does end E flat.
The E flat, yeah.
And the very last chord of the song, E flat. So yeah, that's your song is E flat. That's the only one I got. I don't know any other E flats.
All right, I was just thinking more on this. One of my favorites is C sharp because of Hendrix, right?
Oh well, does tuning down count? I'm thinking like fingers.
Oh, I guess no.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like the guitar shape, right? It's like that shape of C sharp where you get that. Oh, you know that.
Yeah, Robin Trower stuff.
It's a cool shit. Yeah, F is a hard one. E flat is a hard one.
Yeah. Well, another F that I got was I was figuring out a Beatles song. I've been working on the melody, which is it's called "I Will." Because 1, 2, 3. I'm going to play with something. I'm going to regular fingers.
Oh yeah.
1, 2, 3. And the whole song's in F. Has everybody disappeared? There you are.
I'm here. Yeah, that's a beautiful song. I'm trying to think though. I guess it's just because I'm so guitar heavy thinking wise right now. I'm drawing a blank on more songs in the key of F.
That's okay. That's been my idea. I think in searching the world for music, once in a while I'll come across that rare song that's an F, and I always take notice of it. Like, F? Yeah. How can this be?
Oh yeah. Paul, one of the things that I love. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, the surprising one was yesterday. I figured out a song. It's definitely a keyboard song, and it's in B, which you wouldn't expect because usually keyboard songs are in C or F. And it's a huge hit when I was a kid. Love Will Keep Us Together.
Oh, yeah.
You better stop, 'cause I won't stop. I've been thinking of keep us together. And it's got that great line. And B.
So good. That's so good. You forget how good these songs are. And then I listen to you play and I go, oh, that is so good with that little line. It's like, it's so cool, man.
But then since it was written on keyboards, then the left hand can go down. And on guitar, it's like a tangle.
Yeah. One of the things I love about your playing, like when we were on tour together, I would be watching you play things. And I feel like as a guitar player, it helped me a lot because you're so melody driven. And I feel like a lot of people know that about you and a lot don't. So you'll play things like these beautiful guitar, and it really inspires me not only to like work on my melodic lines, but work on my vibrato, my bending, because there's so much there that you can say with a guitar. Let's say when you're mimicking a vocal, I feel like even with the slide, you'll do things with the slide and it'll come out of nowhere because it's on your guitar. And it just is such a cool thing. And I feel like that's one of my favorite qualities about you as a player, man. Yeah, that right there.
Well, yeah. Well,
you would do stuff that's a great... and all of a sudden I hear a slide. So cool.
Well, thank you. That's an incredible compliment. And that wasn't always the case. Fortunately, I've been able to play guitar long enough where I've had, the part where I could always play fast, and that was okay. And then I got tired of listening to myself, so I expanded from it a bit. But and there's Marcus. Marcus, what's going on?
Hey, I just thought this was the perfect segue. We've got a question here.
Oh, cool.
Sharing some tips on how you use the slide.
Oh yeah. Well,
Any advice for that?
One thing is to learn. I only learned vocal melodies. I don't know any guitar licks with slide. So I started off by copying singers, and it's singers rarely sing like scales. You know, I won't hear. That's not like a vocal line very often. So I would figure out like Mercedes-Benz by Janis Joplin, which is actually, I think that's in E flat, but I've learned it in E because it's easier on guitar. So I get my key, you know, oh Lord, what was it? Oh Lord, won't you buy me? Oh, da, 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 da. I can't hear my guitar that well. Let me try that again. There it is. Now, the main thing about that is it's based around that E bar chord, and that's one of the most useful because, of course, the slide fits that straight line, so that's sort of home base. And you know, even if you have a different tuning, I use standard tuning, but you know that part's probably going to stay the same. So it's a really reliable thing. So you just find like from that home base what things are connected to it. So for example, this little chromatic thing, just moving up to your B note and then having a blues return. So and the same thing down an octave, like. And that's like one of the best lines I know was Blackbird by the Beatles. It's in G, and when McCartney goes, "Into the line of the dark black night," and that's got a really big jump. Actually, just that move, like this 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth note to have to go. You actually have to move fast to get that. And at the end, to be able to get that accurately. Into the line of the dark black night. So that Some Kind of Wonderful with
sounds awesome. I feel like getting that. Oh, go ahead. No, I'm just saying, getting those movements so clean. Yeah, getting those movements so clean, it just takes time, and you're muting, right? There's big moves in playing slide and standard. I don't have a slide with me, but you can learn so much off of those triads, right? Yeah. Moving from, like you said, from that E. I even envision in my head like having a slide and playing off of that, so I can do those, that's with fingers, obviously, but it's such a great thing. And I feel like you going along saying melodies, learning vocal melodies, it's key. It's so key.
The thing that you said that's important, and I forgot, is to be able to mute the other strings, because I'm playing single notes, and I can't do it with my left hand, because that's the slide is there. So all the muting is coming from the right hand, and I do that by making an emu with my hand. So I use 2 fingers and the thumb and put the pick in there. And that helps me make it real staccato. So I can put it on the brakes. After I pick it, I can stop it. And I'm using, either like this skin or also here. And just, what I don't want it to ring. I don't want that's going to be messy. So I have to go real staccato. So just try like a downstroke and an upstroke, down, up, on each string. And that way you can, that's how you clean it up.
And the other side of that is your intonation. You can really hear that intonation come through. And I feel like that's a huge slide thing. It's kind of a guitar lead thing in general, right? Is to nail that intonation with a slide. I remember always playing and it would sound like a cat, or like it would be like a, it would just be horrible. And I thought, how do I get it? And it's really being able to figure out exactly where to put that slide. Yeah. And that's something that you do so well. And like I said, I take that in all different styles of kind of single note playing, is having that intonation, but also realizing when you're playing with a voice, sometimes things aren't perfectly in tune, and that's what makes them get that certain sound, right? Yeah. So it's even like you're talking about that Blackbird line with McCartney, and I think about that like in a bluesy way. You start to say to yourself, okay, cool. There's like notes where you hit, maybe you're a little flat or a little sharp, and it gives it a certain flair. In the blues, I feel like that's something I hear all the time when someone plays and they go, it's like, it's sharp, but hitting those, it kind of gives your playing a little bit more spice.
I love that bending sharp thing. I've been figuring out the vocal line to the Beatles song "Oh Darling," which is right at the top of McCartney's range. He's just screaming it out. And there's a part where when I play it on guitar, it sounds more like him if I bend the whole thing sharp. Let me see if I can remember what that part is, because he starts that out. Must be in the bridge. Yeah. the whole thing. And cry. I get that whole G string that's lifted up the whole time, and it's just the right feel.
It's the right feel. And I was thinking about like I Want You, She's So Heavy, right? Yeah. And I feel like that one too, I don't know, it's just way more bluesy. But whenever I would play that on the guitar, I go like, but it's almost like trying to find that perfect balance of the right note and the right kind of tuning, but also being able to just get it a little bit into that side where you go, ooh, like it's almost wrong, but it's so right.
It ends up coming back to emotions, and often my emotion detector is my eyebrow.
Like, that's awesome.
So,
I love it.
Yeah, it has to match the face.
Oh yeah, look who you're talking to, right? It's funny because when you play like that, and I'm watching you play, it's like I'm watching the gears turn in your head of where you're going next, right? And you're vocalizing. You're essentially playing melodically, and you're saying, "Oh, yep." But then it's funny to watch your face match, especially when you do the. It's just hilarious. That's awesome, man.
So Jared, or Marcus is here. Do you have another question for us?
Marcus, what's up?
Oh, there's questions coming in like crazy, so I'll hit them as it comes up. But this one I think could take the rest of the show, but I think it's a good kickoff spot. Top 5 favorite solos. and go.
Jared, I've been hogging the mic. You go for it.
Oh, that's just a super loaded question. That's a hard one to think. Okay, I'll say one of my favorite solos of ever is the intro solo to Shut Down You Crazy John, David Gilmour, because I feel like that's like a master class in like finesse, but also like leaving space when you're playing. And my amp's kind of set up for like a little bit more of a heavy sound, but he starts out with that I'm very rushing it, but that solo, there's so much space and it's all about that kind of phrasing, right? And I feel like as I grow as a guitar player, Paul, maybe you feel the same way. Sometimes I feel like obviously tone and all of that, but phrasing is where it's at. It's being able to put those notes together, because we only have so many notes we're putting together, but you put them together in the right way that just has the biggest impact. And I feel like that's such a big thing that I never thought about until more recently.
Well, some music is friendlier and more inviting for phrasing than others. You know, that's to me sometimes the challenge with like the Mr. Big Show is
Right.
I'll have 8 bars for the solo, which is short. And at the beginning of the solo, it's already going full blast. You know, so like I hit the first note and I already feel like I've hit the end of the solo, like at the beginning. So
Right.
it's much easier. Like some of my favorite soloists are like Robin Trower. And it's when the whole song comes down and he's got a lot of like dynamic range that he can explore. And, you know, so in a song like Daydream, where it's, the band's just real quiet going like from G major, A, and then up chromatically to B. And the band's way down and he's just, you know. And he can, you know, he has a chance to stop and breathe and hold, you know, there's just, and nobody's going like, hey, Robin, wrap it up. 8 bars, come on.
Totally. That's a good point. Okay, let me try. I'm trying to think of one of my other favorite solos. Ooh, if you have one on the tip of your tongue, say it, Paul.
Okay.
I'm thinking.
I'm not necessarily going to go with my favorite. I'm going to go with ones I remember. And
yeah.
And I always remember Neil Schon, the beginning of a song called Majestic, which is the instrumental song that opens up a Journey record. And it's in E. And I never figured out the right fingering. I play it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's just so memorable.
Yes.
You know, it sounds like somebody singing.
So along is, now that you're talking like that, one of my biggest heroes, Leslie West, right? Of course, there's Mississippi Queen, which is the absolute of that kind of call and response, but also like, you know, playing another thing too, like being able to play that melodically with the guitar feel, right? So as simple as that is, that that line, that being able to take that and take it more. So all of that, but also just the fact of that intro where it's that just totally melodic, totally like snappy guitar-y, but also with enough attitude to kind of push it over the edge. I don't know why, but when you played that Neil Schon thing where you hit that, I was like, oh, there's just something about that guitar going into that major third thing. I don't know what it is, but it just literally gives me fun here.
It's blues.
It's blues. Yes. What else, Paul? What other memorable solos? Do you have another one on the tip of your tongue?
Well, recently, one that I just figured out. It's just a short. I don't know if I even call it a solo. It's more like a fill. But I always wanted to figure it out. It's Van Halen, and it's from the song "Beautiful Girls," which is this super tight shuffle, and it's going and one of the fills he does is like, or was that sorry, and the notes are crazy. There's all kinds. I call them pickles because you're eating your hamburger and all of a sudden you bite into the pickle. It's like, wait a minute, that's different flavor. But
that's
rhythmically,
great.
it's so locked in. If I slow it down, it's a and after figuring it out, I thought, well, okay, that's one thing to learn it, and maybe I can join a Van Halen cover band now. But what can I take from that and make my own? And so just that technique that he's using over and over, this kind of like, I took that and just came up with like kind of a heavy, chunky. And you can just put it almost anywhere. It's just this nice, it has the same kind of swing.
Yeah, man. Adding that swing and the rock stuff, it's like, I think it was like a Rick Derringer live solo or something I heard with Johnny Winter or something. Yeah. And like where you'd want to play super straight, all of a sudden he started to play like a... He does this thing, and I'm like, I feel like that's such an effective tool, especially in a world of playing straight, playing rock in that kind of genre. Adding some of that swing really feels good. And I feel like Eddie Van Halen was kind of one of those kings of swing, and you didn't even know it.
Absolutely.
That lick is crazy cool.
Yeah. Well, one other one I'll mention, which is, I mean, when I think of like solos, my mind immediately goes to like things that aren't guitar or aren't even rock, but are like phrases that were really important to me.
Sure.
And there's Emerson, Lake and Palmer did this classical song called "Hoedown." Mm-hmm. I mean, it's relatively modern.
Okay.
It's like. And that end part. That really caught my ear. Like I thought that was a cool melody. And so, but I found that with the technique I was using, that I could swing it. I could go. And then I thought, well, that's like D major, but what if I put blues notes in it and still kept the swing? Like maybe put it in like A blues. And I went. And it speeds up real nice. If you got a fast shuffle. So
Paul, you're disgusting. Awesome. So good.
So that's what I should mention the composer. It's Aaron Copland.
Aaron Copland. It's so good. And I feel like that's another thing, like what you're talking about is going beyond the solo or beyond the melody, right? Taking what it is and kind of being able to morph it into something into your own playing. And I feel like I think that's like as a guitar player or as a musician, that's like our goal, right? Is to have all this wonderful stuff that we love and then be able to morph it into something. Yeah, I don't know, maybe just a thought, but I think that's kind of one of our ultimate goals.
I was just watching, a YouTube philosopher talking about life in general. And he said two words that he puts great importance on, and I agree: play and curiosity. And that's where, for me, that's where that comes from. You know, I love to, you know, I mean, even, you know, in the English language, you play guitar. You know, it's not work, it's not study, it's you know, you're playing.
Yeah.
And then
Totally.
to be curious as you go. Like you learn something. It's like, well, what else? You know, what does this? You know, what the thing I learned, it might answer a question, but it also makes more questions. You know, and what are those, and how can I answer those? You know, so it opens up doors.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I feel like too, there's never one answer to like a musical question. You know, like everything that we play, it's like, okay, it's almost like how do I want to answer it this time? It's like, or how do I want to dance around it, right? It's the same as like there's no right way to play over a shuffle or whatever it is, but it's like where's your mindset at? I think that's kind of a cool thing too, is when I think about some of my favorite solos, I think more about the player and where their headspace was. It's like you talking about Robin Trower. And you're like, oh, he gets to just, there's this boiling under, you know, the rhythm section, and then he plays over it. And it's even like listening to old Hendrix, right? And you could tell when he was in like a good mood, a bad mood, if things weren't working, the way that he played was more aggressive or more brash, or maybe there was a more like melodic sense if it was a really good, you know, a good night. I don't know. I think there's so many ways with music that it's really just comes down to that expression.
And of course, building enough fluency with the instrument, so when you have an emotion, you can turn it into something. You know, because you have to be able to play.
Truly. I think you said it once. I remember when I was younger, I was reading an interview, and it's like it's all about having that language on tap. I think it was something you said, and I held on to it because it was like having that knowledge and that foundation, and that knowing the fretboard and knowing your theory can get you there, and it lets you basically speak easier through the instrument.
Yeah, because you know it's that balance. On one end, you want to be, you know, as emotional as possible and in the moment. And the other part of it relies on the practice that you did beforehand to build the vocabulary and the technique to be able to get that across. So, to me, you can't survive on either one. You really need that mix.
Yeah, totally. I couldn't agree more.
That's actually a perfect segue, because we've had quite a few questions come in just asking for you guys tips or advice just on sort of controlling stage fear, building that confidence. Any more advice on that front?
I got great advice from a 90-year-old piano player that I took a lesson from once. And he said that he used to really suffer from stage fright. And of course, he's playing hard stuff, classical pieces. And his one-word answer was intention. So my example of that is, if you had to go on stage and walk up to the mic and say your name, you know, to say, you know, hey, my name is Paul Gilbert. You're probably not going to be nervous about that, because you know you're going to get it right. And you also know what you want to communicate. And that's really, I think, one of the things is like to have a sense of what you want to communicate. And you just think, okay, I've got this idea and I want to give it to people, you know, so I'm going to do that. You know, and I think if you make it your world that small, it helps. And then the one of the technique which solves everything is connect to something, and to me it's usually the drummer. If I just listen to the snare drum and make my world that small, connect to the snare, it solves everything. You know, all my problems fall away.
That's great advice. Another thing I'd like to add to that is, you know, when I first got on stage, even to today, it's like being able to connect with the instrument, the gear you're using. Not that it always relies on your gear, but basically having the least amount of things in my way as possible has really helped me out, kind of getting over that that scare of being on stage, right? I remember walking out and having, okay, I set up a pedal board or this certain amplifier or whatever the guitar it was, and being almost nervous about using that gear. I think that's one of those things that maybe not a lot of people think about, but has helped me personally feel more comfortable and more natural on stage, is to basically say, okay, what do I need up here and what do I not need? And it kind of takes away a little bit of that in between me being the physicality of playing guitar, for instance, right now, guitar, cable into an amplifier. It's so simple and it's so pure, but it makes me focus more on the task at hand and what I really am trying to play and what I'm trying to say. And that helped me a lot, you know, and that was something that took me years to kind of get over, that whole gear situation on stage. I don't know, Paul, if that's something that you've ever thought about, but it really helped me out. Just kind of knowing what I have to use.
It can be distracting. And I, you know, like anybody who uses pedals, you know, once in a while, I'll have a terrible mishap. You know, hit one and I meant to hit the other one, and it makes the guitar suddenly twice as loud. But it sort of, for me, it depends on the songs I'm playing. With Mr. Big, we've got a couple songs that are super, super clean. And if I just like turn down my volume control to get the clean sound, it's not going to be enough. So I need to have, for that particular set list, I need to have some gear complexity just to make the song sound right. If I'm doing a set and it's all blues rock, then I can simplify things a whole lot. So I sort of have to deal with that depending on the song list.
Totally.
Cool. Another great segue to talk a little bit about you guys' gear. Favorite amps, favorite gear. What are you guys using on stage these days?
Oh, let me see.
Paul, kick it off.
Yeah. At the level of touring that I do, you know, we're not the Rolling Stones, so we can't afford to have our own, jetliner filled with our own custom road cases and our custom special amps. So we used a lot of rented backline, and getting used to that, I think for me it's important to have equipment that I know that the backline companies are going to have. So I want to use like a popular amp that's easy to find. And I also want to use an amp that I know can be really clean, because then I can use my pedals, which I bring with me, to get the distortion. And then that way I can't be messed up by getting an amp where the tubes are worn out. And so the answer to that ends up being like a Marshall 1959 SLP, which is a super loud, super clean Marshall. And that's how I set it, you know, not getting any distortion from the amp. And then a couple Fender Twin reverbs, because I like to put a Fender Twin in front of me, because like a wedge. That way I don't need to rely on the monitor guy. I can just, if I need to hit more guitar, I've got a knob, I can do it. And I bring my pedal board, and I can get everything from there. You know, in a perfect world, I might have an amp I can crank up and I bring it along. But I've got an old, worn out JCM 800s too often to trust that anymore.
That's great. Yeah, I witnessed firsthand, Paul, and I actually played through some of your rig when some of my gear didn't show up on our last tour. It sounded incredible. And the fact that you have that twin reverb in front of you, it made me like go, oh, I don't need to worry about a monitor mix. It's right here. I can literally dial it in right here, which was so helpful. And yeah, your rig sounded incredible. Incredible, man. For me, I'm very simple. I've been using Blackstar amps forever, and one of the big reasons too is when I started to tour, I really wanted something that was reliable, of course, but also I could get anywhere in the world. And Blackstar's been so good to me. Even like right now, I'm gonna twist here. Hold on, let me twist this, and you can see I'm just rocking, just a little baby 20 watt. This is my signature 20 watt with the cabinet. It's pretty worn. I've been using it forever, but very simple. Like Paul said, things just need to work. And using the Blackstars, I've been really lucky in my personal experience that I take them everywhere. And these heads are very small. So like going along with Paul, what you were saying about touring is a lot of times I'll just throw one of these in a suitcase. I'll wrap it really good, which is horrible. People are going to go, why would you ever do that? but I'll just throw it in a suitcase and I'll take it with me and I'll be able to plop it on any 4x12 cabinet, whatever it is, and kind of get there with the sounds that I need. But it's all basic stuff. It's all like meat and potatoes, right? Especially, you know, with backline gear. Get what you know is going to work and what's going to sound great and get you through the gig.
Now, we've had a bunch of perfectly segued questions. my contrarian mind is like, well, let's have a bad question that doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about.
Yeah, give us a horrible question, Marcus. Come on, man. It's too nice. I'm having such a nice time.
I was trying to give you some flow here.
We can handle a good one. That's okay.
Let me just go for the first one that is popping in my face here. What is the hardest concept for students to grasp? Where do they tend to plateau and fall off?
Well, thank goodness that students need help. Otherwise, you know, we'd be out of a teaching job. But seriously, I call this, the thing I'm sitting on wherever I am, I call it the teacher's chair. And I have what I consider to be kind of the temporary honor of sitting in the teacher's chair. And I'm really grateful that people will listen to my ideas about things. And I, in a way, I take it more, I want it to be a back and forth where that's the best thing about ArtistWorks is I can listen to the student play. And it's more like two musicians hanging out and talking like Jared and I are now, where, you know, whenever I do a lesson, it's important to me to have what I say only happen because I heard that student play. So I'm not just going like, I've got these ideas and I want to give them to everyone. No, I want to hear you, the student, play something, and whatever it was, that's going to affect how I respond. And to me, that feels good because, you know, what you did changed the world. You know, it changed what I'm thinking about, and I love it because it makes me come up with ideas I never would have thought of otherwise. And everybody's different. So I don't know if there's one answer because everybody's, you know, rock is a big style. You know, it encompasses blues and there's jazz elements and there's heavy rock and yacht rock and there's so many different elements. And of course, each person has their own style and humanity. So to me, the thing I love about ArtistWorks is that I get to hear that human being and how they approach it, what they do well, what they want to do. And I often just go like, okay, this is what I want them to do, and I'm going to combine that with what I know what they want to do, so we'll both be happy.
Mm-hmm. That's great, Paul. I mean, yeah, and you're such a great teacher in so many facets. I mean, but you're so right when it comes down to the fact of what the student really wants to learn and how you can incorporate and how you're going to play off of that. I think that's, for me, one of the biggest things when I'm helping someone out is I want to hear them play. I want to hear where they're at with the guitar. You know, we can talk all day, but until we have the instrument in our hands and, you know, I get a video sent to me and they say, I'm really having a hard time going from the 1 to the 4 chord and adding this kind of passing tone with a bend. Until I can see that, that's a really hard concept to grasp. I feel like it's just like talking to someone right now with us. And like you said, what they play and what I can hopefully apply to that and enrich what they're already doing, that means everything for me. And I think that that's really the biggest roadblock for a lot of players is getting over that initial kind of maybe fear or that kind of, okay, I have to put myself out there. But we both know that putting yourself out there, no matter how uncomfortable it is, it leads to the greatest rewards, which in this case is learning and growth and playing music and getting over those kind of plateaus or, you know, you get stuck in that kind of rut. These are the ways to break out of that. And like you said, being able to kind of instill your years, Paul, 40 years of playing, I don't even know. 50.
I don't know either.
You're probably, whatever it is, the fact of having you be able to see what they're doing and adapt to what they need, that's the biggest thing. So I think that's why ArtistWorks rules is those VEs. You can send someone a video, they can diagnose, and it's just so much straight to the source. And I love that.
It's interesting because a lot of things that I teach are things that I didn't know that I was doing. And from helping a student, I'll have to sort of reverse engineer and realize, oh, that's how this works. And I'll give you an example. In fact, I'm curious about how you approach this in your own technique, because I think everybody has their own technique.
Sure.
So what this is when you do bending or vibrato, to me, you either have to push the string up toward the sky or down towards the ground. And there's not one correct answer. It depends on the situation. So for example, with me, if I'm playing like the rap string, like an A string, if I'm going, I'll tend to pull that down towards the ground. But if I'm playing the high E string, that one I'm going to push up. Now those are obvious choices because that if you do it the other way, you can have a disaster. You can pull off the edge of the fretboard, So that's an easy decision. But the one where it's a little trickier to figure out is like the B string. And some of my biggest heroes, because I'll watch them. I'll watch like Brian May, and I was like, oh, I love his vibrato. How does he do it? And a lot of times Brian May will pull the B string down towards the ground, and it sounds great and it works. But I get scared doing that because I feel like if I go a little too dramatic with it, it's going to go, off the edge of the fretboard. So my physical habit is on the B string almost always, for vibrato, is bending up. Now that's part one. Part two, which is actually the thing I want to ask you about besides that, is when you are doing a bend down towards the ground, if it's a long note and I have some time with it, my thumb will rise up like that. I didn't even know I was doing that, like that. It's sort of like hang loose, that Hawaiian, But if I'm bending up, the thumb hangs over the whole time. I have no idea why that is, but that was to me a really important discovery, and it has to do with like where the wrist is. And so when you bend down, what does your thumb do?
Okay, so when I bend down, it's almost like my thumb wants to stay on the back of the neck.
Oh, wow.
Like you said. So, all right, so if I'm bending down, so I'm like, it's like, it's really weird. It's like it's like my thumb wants to kind of get out of the way. I don't want it to be like, because like you said, okay, so kicking off, the Brian May thing, I would see Clapton do this stuff where he'd bend that B string down, right? But I'm like you, I'm scared because if he's doing that, it's like, I need to make sure my thumb is back there. So then I feel like I have more control, because whenever my thumb does one of these, it's like the power move where it's like, I'm using that thumb almost as like the fulcrum, the kind of the push. So there's this weird one, Paul, that I've seen with vibrato, and it's something I've been doing lately. I'm not sure. I'm sure you've seen it and done it, but it's this thing. I'm basically using my middle finger. Let's say I'm on the 12th fret of the G string, and I'm pulling down, and as you see, my thumb is completely off.
Yeah,
I've seen some guys do that, or even like a. So that's a weird one too. I don't know
Clapton.
if there's a right. Yeah, the Clapton. So I don't know if there's a right answer, because I try and do all of it, and maybe there's something, like I said about answering different ways for everything. Maybe there's certain licks that feel better with that kind of that you're really digging it in, or there's somewhere I want to go. Or if I want to do like a weird bend down. But it's so crazy and cool how personal I feel like guitar is, right? Because like you said, everyone has their own style about everything. And there's just no wrong way or right way to do anything as long as you get that result you're looking for, which is, it's a lot of trial and error. And I feel like more error than usual for me. I'll do things the wrong way so many times, but knowing that and just trying to maybe tweak it here or there. And it just takes time. That's one of the biggest things I say to people all the time as well. Regardless of what style or what you're trying to play, it's going to take a lot of time to really get that to sit under your fingers right. And also your body to kind of be able to just hit a lick or to hit a certain bend or have that certain control. It just takes just relentless amount of times doing it to get that muscle memory up.
Are there any times in your journey when you remember finding a discovery that out of luck or whatever didn't take a lot of time, and you suddenly were like, whoa, I can do this, like, I practiced it for 5 minutes and it's working?
Well, yeah, because for me, there were certain things, like as simple as it is, like I didn't realize that when you bent, you could add vibrato. I thought forever it was either a complete shake. So I would do things where I go like this. I'd bend up, right? Like, and I go. Then I realized, no, hold on. I'm watching videos of Jimmy Page and he would do and add a shake to it. And I realized within like 5 minutes, it's like, oh, I hit the note. I'm at the note. Now I can add a shake to that as long as I keep it up. Things like that, or even more simple stuff for me was like, being able to hit one low note and then add a lick on top of it. Robin Trower, I would hear the. That kind of stuff for me, it was life-changing because I realized, oh, I'm kind of playing the bass and the lead at the same time. As simple as maybe it is to hit a low E and to play a lick on top, it taught me a lot about kind of how, as long as you're able to manipulate the guitar, there's so many things and octaves you can play at once. It's just all right there. It's just being able to manipulate it.
Well, it's interesting how the strings, especially with distortion, can fight each other a little bit. So as with your hands, you have to balance the volume of the strings so they don't just all fight and turn into a big mess. And to me, one of the coolest like accidents, I just stumbled onto this, was that Billy Gibbons, like where it's like two notes, and I always thought that you had to pick both of them, somehow, and you don't. You just pick the top one, and the top one like overwhelms the bottom one, so you don't hear it until you stop playing it, and then the lower one comes through. So you just sort of slide into the chord and sustain it, and then you finger pick the top one only, and you still hear the lower one coming through, just like you were. It's like magic, because you don't have to play the lower one; it just comes through when it should. And it's so much easier.
Totally. That's a great one.
Yeah.
I'm sure when he figured that out too, he was like, oh, I just got to hit it once? Oh, okay, cool. So I just... That's awesome.
It's like a free note. Yeah, to me, one of the ones was...
Yeah, you get a free one right there.
I was, being a Van Halen fan, I had worked on a lot of the 3-note per string, those sort of things, and whole scale, patterns within that, that kind of, I call it snarly dog licks, like the beginning of Eruption, where Eddie goes. And I don't know what the pattern is, but it's just that, and I would always do it with that kind of stretch. And then once, like Eddie would do like the bigger stretch, like the end of Ice Cream Man, something like that. But it was always, my discovery was to do that, but skip a string. And the first one I figured out was like A minor, which is 3 notes on a string, and then you skip a string, and then you just go back and forth. And then if you want to skip again, I found those. And that'll get me fired from any blues rock gig, but for the shred stuff, it's awesome.
I love it.
So that
I love it.
Because I had been doing similar patterns, basically the architecture is the same. You just sort of like stretch it out, and that one, in 2 minutes, I was playing it perfectly, and I was looking at my hands, going, "Thank you! You just given me a gift."
Totally. Paul, your technique is out of control, and I feel like now after this stream, I'm gonna go practice for like 5 hours. I feel so inspired every time I watch you play, man.
Well, that's a nice compliment, but I know where all my techniques are based, and it's all like Black Sabbath and Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Yeah,
like
of course, man.
The Liquor Sweetly. It's just that, but just, it leaked over to the pinky,
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. What's up, Marcus?
So more questions just piling in. I don't think we're going to have time to get to all of these, but thanks to everyone that's dropping these in here. But a bunch of questions sort of circled around the idea of just creating music and your approach to it. Sounds like a lot of people are sort of trying to figure out how to get started with that. Any advice for them?
My advice would be, it's always play what you love, but also like Paul just said, leaning on your influences, that's not a bad thing. Especially when you're finding your footing of what you're trying to write. Literally taking your favorite riffs and blatantly ripping them off and figuring out what it is you love about them. I think that's just something that's really, really an important thing to do. And it can kind of set your architecture of where you want to go as a songwriter. One of my biggest things, especially starting out with blues stuff, there's a lot of forms. There's a lot of forms that you hear, whether it's like a 12-bar blues or an 8-bar blues, slow blues, a rumba, shuffles. You hear these terms thrown around, and sometimes it can be hard to figure out your own way of doing it. But if you dig deeper and you find, okay, whose shuffles do I love? Let's say you go, I love ZZ Top, or you say, you know what? No, more old school. I love the Buddy Guy shuffle, right? And you find these different ways to play. You figure out different ways about playing the same thing. So you have to really dig into your influences and say, where do I want to go musically? And take the blues away from that. Let's say it's your, more rock side. I would think to myself, okay, cool. I want to write a riff that sounds like the first riff I ever learned was Electric Funeral by Black Sabbath. Great. I want to write a riff that feels like that and kind of gives me that feel. And there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like that's the way to grow. So for me, I would lean into your influences, especially when you're first starting out, and say to yourself, I'm going to write down my 10 favorite bands, my 10 favorite songs, my 10 favorite riffs, and look at those and find the qualities you love about them and just kind of run with it and see what you come up with. And remember, have fun with it. Nothing is, you're not going to go to jail for writing a riff at your house that sounds just like, you're okay. It's going to be okay. But to use that as a tool to learn and to grow, it's a powerful thing.
I agree with all that. I'm definitely a product of all the stuff I've listened to. But I would say for songwriting, if that's what we're talking about, one of the tricks is to realize that guitar is just one part of it, and that most songs either have a vocal line, or if it's instrumental, like, Joe Satriani basically plays vocal lines on his guitar. And So if you're just focused completely on guitar, it's almost like trying to make a hamburger with only the bun. You know,
Yeah.
you need the other parts. And so if you're a singer, or if you know a singer, or if you want to play the melody on guitar, that's really helpful to see the whole picture of the song. And again, often songs have lyrics, and even I've done this all the time where I'll start with a lyric, and that just is like the scaffolding to make the form of the song, and then I'll keep the song instrumental and I'll throw away the lyrics, but I'll have a melody that came from it. So for example, the thing I just said, I have a melody that came from it. If I take that line and how I speak it, da 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 da, and it sort of has a melodic curve. Da 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 da. It has a part where it rises, part where it falls, and I start to chew on that. Well, maybe put some notes in that. Da 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 da. Find a key. It's an F. I don't want it in F. I want it E.
Yeah.
Now that's just my first try. Before I get too deep, I might try it as a shuffle. I kind of like that better. And I don't, again, it could be instrumental. I could just, and then that's my seed, which I start to grow stuff from. Because here's the thing, it's just like classic songwriting technique. You've got your idea, you repeat it, and then you go somewhere else. And those three things are like your main thing. So let's do it twice. 1, 2, 3. Repeat it. And then I want to do something else. And then the chord. Now that took 1 minute to put together, and you just become fluent with that process, and then you also get comfortable with throwing them away. But before you do that, record them. Just keep track of all these little ideas, let them kind of sit, and then at some point you go back and you go, okay, I've got 30 ideas now. Maybe 3 of them are good, and then take those and develop them. But sort of keep an audio scrapbook of all your ideas, and I know a lot of people play guitar so they don't have to sing, but if you want to be a writer, you're gonna have to. Nobody has to hear it. You can turn it into guitar later, but man, you're gonna have to sing if you want to get any melodies across. It really is important.
That is such a great. Yeah, I mean that's incredible. I love the fact of you saying that. Just the guitar is just one small piece of the whole picture. And you're so right. And I feel like even for me, when I first started writing, thinking in a guitar head, I remember the drummer, he said to me straight away, he goes, okay, cool. Who's going to sing? And I went, I guess I will. And then you have to start thinking with that side of your brain. So there's so much more that goes into that. And that melody is going to be stuck in my head now. Yeah, man. So good.
All right. That's how you write.
That's how you write a song.
Awesome. That's fantastic, guys. Thank you for that. Hey, so I want to be respectful of your time. We're over the hour mark now. We can go as long as you guys want, but I know you guys are both
all right. See you later,
busy gentlemen. So anyway, before we get too far further, I just wanted to give an opportunity to talk about, both of you have 2 really cool things to talk about as far as ArtistWorks. Let me start with you, Jared, real quick. So Jared just dropped a whole batch of new lessons yesterday, and there's more coming.
Yes.
And there were questions here about like what to do over blues progressions, how to get into what to do when pentatonics get repetitive and that kind of thing. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the new lessons that you just dropped?
Yeah, totally. So I'm super excited about these because the initial round of lessons that I did, although it was a ton, I felt like I was really on the surface of a lot of ideas and basically a lot of ideas that you could take and you could delve a lot deeper into. So one of the big things we started to talk about was, okay, let's think about like here and now. Like it's almost like street blues kind of ideas where it's like, okay, I'm going to give you 5 licks that I would play going from the 5 to the 4 chord in a slow blues. Let's go even deeper. We start to talk about getting into more bluesy ways of using passing tones or dipping your toe into the water of modes and how you can use certain notes that are completely not in your typical, blues or minor or major pentatonics, and really adding those to your playing. So we start to talk more about that, and also a little bit more into advanced licks and the way that I play certain things, incorporating ghost notes, doing different licks where we're adding pedal steel sounds. So like, moving this cable. If I were to play an A, right, and I go to that 5 chord, thinking in a blues head, but branching out, going further, finding different ways to kind of use that well-worn path to find fresh little ideas to kind of incorporate into your playing. So this is really exciting for me because now I get a ton of new VEs where we're talking about a lot of fresh techniques. So if you haven't checked those out yet, and also if you haven't checked out, the original batch of my lessons, dig in. There's a lot of really fun stuff that I'm super proud of that I feel like could really add a lot to your playing. Even if you're not into the blues, you want to, take some of these ideas and put them into your own kind of, mix. It'll add something really fresh and exciting.
That's awesome. Thanks, Jared. And
Of course.
yeah, and there's, of course, all these lessons are supported with backing tracks and tablature. So there's all the stuff you need there to really dig in. And for Paul, this is very exciting. You are just on the cusp of hitting the 15,000 video exchange milestone. That I can't even wrap my head around that. You've literally done almost 15,000 responses to student questions and demonstrations.
I see that as proof that I enjoy the process. I like hanging out with musicians and communicating, and that's and I at the very beginning I made a decision about how I wanted to do these video exchanges, and here's what it is. I base everything on a specific musical example. So whatever the technique is, whatever the philosophy is, whatever the question is, I want to have something very specific that gets that's an example of what we're talking about. So, if it's a picking lick, I don't want to just talk about pick motions. I mean, I will, but it's all in something that's musical that I think is you'll likely be able to take out and use at the gig. And same thing if it's a theory thing, like, okay, how do you get from the 1 chord to the 4 chord? I do that with a specific thing, and it's not just me jamming, something like this, no, it's very specific. And I've done that nearly 15,000 times. And personally, the teacher learns the most, so I've benefited enormously from it and enjoyed it enormously. And I look at it also, if you go to the front page of the ArtistWorks, with me or Jared or anybody, it shows the 10 most recent video exchanges. And I always look at that as the current events. Like, this is the news of the day. This is in a way the latest technology that I'm mustering up for whoever those 10 people happen to be. And it'll be a wide variety of stuff. Even, of course, it's within the rock genre, but there'll be stuff that's focused on technique, things that are focused on theory, things that are focused on style, things that are a particular song, all sorts of things. So occasionally I love what Jared did, where you sit down and you go, I want to focus it on a particular direction. But mine, I did that actually. If you go in, I did one a while back called Power Tools, where I took stock in what I had been teaching, for a few years, and I thought, I really want to emphasize and put my best ideas in one place, and that was the Power Tools section, which got added, after the initial course. But you know, every day just about, you know, you go on there and the current events has been updated. I'm constantly putting new stuff on there, and it adds up. We're nearly at 15,000.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's such an amazing contribution. I mean,
Amazing.
to both of you, thank you for handing this legacy of how to play the guitar, and you know, sharing this knowledge with everybody that's trying to do the same. It's really a great thing, and you guys have built a community around your styles, which is just fantastic. So on that note, we encourage everyone that wants to come check it out. Click the link in the description. We're actually doing this big competition. You can win a guitar, you can win some pickups, strings, picks, signed albums. Give it a shot. You'll get some free sample lessons, and you can get a taste for this. And of course, you can always visit us at artistworks.com and sign up today. And Jared, Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. This is really fun. Some great information, and of course, amazing playing. Thanks so much. And thank you to everybody that tuned in to join us here. We'll see you very soon for another one of these ArtistWorks streams. Tell your friends.
Right.
Any closing thoughts, guys?
Jared, you want to play one more?
Thank you both.
Blues before we go?
Come on, you kick it off. Let's go.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll do 12 bars and then I'll pass it over. What key do you like?
F.
F. All right. Really? Okay, I'll take you there. Let's see. I'll keep it slow so I got a fighting chance. So 1, 2, 3, 2.
Yeah, me too.
3. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. I messed up the last chord, but you take it. F.
Here we go.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, one. I got to do one shreddy one. 1, 2, 3, 2.
Do it.
3.
Paul, you're a legend. I loved it.
You too, Jared.
Yeah, let me, no way, not doing it. You got me.
I'm using the cheating list.
Man, thank you so much for doing this. So good, man.
It's all Black
Right
Sabbath and Skinner.
Yeah, okay. I
does
got it. A little more. Man, so good.
Awesome. Well, bravo, guys. Thanks a
Thank you,
lot,
Marcus.
and we'll see you all later.
Right on.
Thank you, guys.